recently a statewide campaign has been launched in Rajasthan for demanding the passage of the social accountability law in the next assembly session. So in this video we are going to cover about the basics of social accountability. That what do you mean by social accountability? Now, in order to explain the concept of social accountability, it is important to first start with a concrete definition of accountability. That what accountability means. Now, accountability can be defined as the obligation of power holders to account for or take responsibility for their action. Now, here power holder refers to those who hold political, financial, or other forms of power and include officials in government, private corporations, international financial institutions like your World Bank, IMF, and civil society organizations. So we can say a fundamental principle of democracy is that citizens have the right to demand accountability, and public actors, that is, government officials, have an obligation to account. Even if you see the World Development Report and the World Bank's empowerment framework, recognize accountability as an integral component of empowerment and hence poverty reduction. Now we'll see the evolution of accountability, that is in general and with respect to India also. Now, if you see, traditionally, efforts to tackle the challenge of accountability have tended to concrete or concentrate on improving the supply side of governance. That is, using methods such as political checks and balances, administrative rules and procedures, auditing requirements, and formal law enforcement agencies like courts and police. So, this is nothing but top down accountability, promoting mechanisms, that is, top down accountability promoting mechanisms have met with only limited success in many countries, including India. Either it is a developed or developing countries. So, this top down accountability mechanism has only limited success. As a result, if you see, we come with new measures or tools for accountability, such as setting up of independent pro accountability agencies like Vigilance Commission, and you can say in banks you have seen ombudsmen have been tried, and in other cases public institutions have been privatized or service contracted to the private sector in an attempt to bring market based accountability into the public sector. Now, if you see more recently, increased attention has been paid to the demand side of the good governance. That is to strengthen the voice and the capacity of citizens, especially poor people, so that they directly demand greater accountability and responsiveness from public officials as well as service providers, hence enhancing the ability of citizens to engage with public servants and politicians in a more informed, or you can say direct and constructive manner, is what the social accountability practices include. So basically what we have seen, that earlier we have, you can say, supply side of governance, which we used to say top down accountability. Now we have, after that we move to independent, you can say, accountability in the form of Vigilance Commission, or you can say ombudsman. And now we are moving toward demand side of governance, which you will say that bottom up. So now your concept of accountability is moving toward social accountability. So when we are talking about demand side of governance, that is what social accountability. Now, if you see the methods of accountability, so till now our focus is on top-down accountability, or you can say supplied side accountability. So that is why if you see that all the states have adopted some form of mechanism in place to promote that top-down accountability. That is a system of accountability that are internal to the state, are often referred as horizontal mechanism of accountability also. Now these includes, for example, political mechanisms. So when we are talking about political mechanisms, we are basically talking about constitutional constraints, that is limitation put by constitution on states, separation of powers, okay, legislature and legislative investigation commissions, or you can say parliamentary committees. Second internal method is fiscal mechanisms. Example, formal system of auditing, or you can say financial accounting. So India, we have FRBM Act. Next is administrative mechanism, which is again a part of internal, you can say internal accountability. So in administrative we have hierarchy, we have code of conduct, we have rules and procedure regarding transparency, or you can say public oversight. Next is legal mechanism. See, all these are a method of internal accountability. Like when we are talking about legal mechanism, so we are talking about corruption control agencies, your ombudsman, judiciary. So we are talking about this. Now, when we come to the concept of social accountability, so your social accountability mechanisms are sometimes referred as external or vertical mechanisms of accountability. That is in contrast to the more conventional internal or horizontal mechanism of accountability that we have discussed above. So it is different from internal. So when we are talking about external accountability, so there we are referring to social accountability. Now one important vertical mechanism of your vertical mechanism of accountability in a democratic states is election. So if you see, elections are a very blunt instrument with which, or you can say, you can hold government accountable. But still it has limitations. That election has some limitation. That is like they do not offer citizens the opportunity to express their preferences on specific issues so that they contribute in a meaningful way in public decision making, or you can say hold public actors accountable for specific decisions or behavior. So this is the limitation of elections. Now so that is to ensure a better social accountability, we need a broad range of actions and mechanism that is beyond voting or election, that citizens, communities, or you can say civil society organization as well as independent media can use to hold public officials and servants accountable. So traditionally these have included a variety of citizens or civil society led actions such as public demonstration, protest, advocacy campaigns, investigative journalism, and PILs, that is your public interest litigation or sometimes lawsuits. In more recent years, so these are the traditional method of vertical accountability, or you can say social accountability. Now, but if you see that in more recent years, the expanded use of participatory data collection and analysis tools combined with enhanced space and opportunity for citizens or civil society or engagement with the state have led to a new generation of social accountability practices that emphasize on a solid evidence based and direct interaction with government counterpart. So earlier if you see that vertical mechanism of accountability also have some traditional method, but we are moving from traditional method to more new methods. Why? Because right now this is a demand of the society. Clear? So these new method includes, for example, participatory budgeting, participatory public policy making, participatory or you can say public expenditure tracking, citizen charter or you can say citizen monitoring, or in last you can say evaluation of public service delivery. So they also include efforts to enhance citizen knowledge, so that we are talking about well aware citizens, and use of conventional mechanism of accountability, for example through public education about legal rights and available services, and or you can say efforts to improve the effectiveness of internal accountability mechanism, for example through citizen involvement in public commission and hearings, as well as citizen advisory boards and oversight committees. So you can say if you want social accountability, you need both, that is your horizontal as well as vertical mechanism of accountability. Although social accountability is restricted to vertical, but vertical accountability cannot come into picture if internal or you can say horizontal accountability is complementing or supplementing it. Clear? So you cannot see or you cannot divorce both, or there is no there is no separation. Okay, so social accountability mechanism are therefore intended both to complement and enhance conventional mechanism of accountability. So here we are talking about that we need both if you want to make successful your social accountability. Okay, so internal and external mechanism. So internal we can say state, and external we can say social mechanism for accountability can and should be mutually reinforcing. Okay, so it has been argued that the impact is greatest and most sustainable when social accountability mechanism are institutionalized, or when the state's own internal mechanism of accountability are rendered more transparent and open to civic engagement. So this can lead to what some scholars have termed transversal or hybrid or diagonal accountability. So here what we want, that what earlier we are doing, we have internal accountability that is working separately, we have external, that is your vertical accountability, that is again working separately. So to have a better fruit, we have to institutionalize your external into internal. Then only you can ensure a better social accountability. So expert has given, if we are doing this thing, so we can call this a new type of accountability which they have termed as your transversal or hybrid or diagonal accountability. Clear? Now this is about the concept of social accountability. Now there is also another debate with respect to accountability. Now what is that debate? That there is a considerable difference of opinion among the scholars of accountability as to how narrowly or broadly the concept of accountability should be defined. Means, for example, some scholars says that accountability as an essentially ex post phenomena, means once the act has been done by the power holders, then accountability comes into picture. That is why ex post phenomena. Whereas others argue that accountability should ideally be applied before, during, or you can say during the working of public authority, that we call ex ante. Okay, so this is the, you can say, to another separate debate with respect to accountability. So here what you can say, either it is post or you can say pre or during the work, but many experts says or argue that there must be a clear distinction between government responsive and government accountability. Means government responsiveness talks about that government responds to citizens expressed needs, whereas government's accountability talks about that citizens are able to hold governments to their promises. So this is the difference between your this thing. Now, so scholars are of the view that these two concepts must be understood together, or you can say you need that government responsiveness and government accountability must work together. Okay, so this is about, you can say, accountability in totality. Clear? Now apart from this, in last we'll conclude this topic by saying this thing, that if you have understood the accountability topic, so there are some 7 main principles of social accountability. Okay, so first is jankari, that is information. Second is bhagidari, that is involvement and participation of citizens. Next is karwai, okay, that is time bound action. Fourth is suraksha, that is protection of citizens. Next, sunwai, that is citizens right to be heard. Next, Janta Ka Manch, that is collective platform. And in last is Prasar, that is report dissemination. Okay. So this is about your social accountability. Clear?